Hello children, welcome to the science class. Today we are going to complete the chapter number 6, Separation of Substances, part 2. In the previous part, as we have already discussed some methods or techniques of separation of substances, in which we have studied about those methods in which we can separate the dry substances in the mixture. But in this part, we are going to know about some more techniques in which we will know how to separate substance if water or liquid is added in the mixture. So, let us know what are these: sedimentation and decantation, loading, filtration, evaporation, use of more than one method of separation, separation of mixture of sand, salt and water. Sedimentation and decantation. Sedimentation is the process of separating heavier substances by adding water to it. And decantation, the method of separation which is based on the ability of components to float or sink in water, is called decantation. Using this method, we can separate mud particles from food grains. Also, we can separate other lighter particles like husk. With this method, we can also separate oil from water. Sediments mean that the heavier and large insoluble solid substances that settle down in the liquid. Let's see how sedimentation is done. If we mix mud in the water and stir it, we can see that mud is settled down. This is known as sedimentation. Now, after some time, without disturbing the liquid, when we separate this liquid in another beaker, we get clear water. This is known as decantation, and the liquid that we get is called as decant. When we separate this liquid with the tea strainer, we get small impurities on the strainer and more clear water in another beaker. So what is sedimentation? When the heavier component in a mixture settles down after water is added to it, the process is called as sedimentation. And decantation, the process in which water or any other liquid above the sediment is removed or poured out without disturbing the sediment, is called decantation. It is also used to separate two immiscible liquids like oil and water. We often use this technique when we cook rice or pulses. We used to wash them before cooking, and the rice or pulses remain in the water as sediments, and the lighter impurities float on the water. So, when we decant this water, the lighter impurities come out with this water. And this is how we can separate impurities from pulses or rice by using this sedimentation and decantation technique. Another method of separation is filtration. Filtration is a method for separating an insoluble solid from a liquid by passing it through a medium, which is a filter paper. Filtration is also used to separate pulp and seeds from the juice. It can be used to separate paneer or cheese from the milk. Sometimes when the water is not clear after decantation, then we apply this technique. In this, the muddy water, which has fine particles floating in the water, is passed through a filter paper, and then we get clear liquid. In filtration, a piece of cloth can also be used. It has fine pores, so when the muddy water is passed through it, the impurities remain on the cloth and we get clear water. But sometimes the impurities are more fine in the water, which cannot be separated with the help of cloth. So we often use a filter paper. Filter paper has more fine pores. So this filter paper is folded and made a cone. It is fitted in the funnel. With this, the muddy water is passed through it, and the lighter impurities remain on the filter paper and we get clear water in the beaker. The impurities that remain on the filter paper is called residue, and the clear water that we get in the beaker is called filtrate. We often filtrate tea with the help of a tea strainer when we separate tea leaves from the tea. And this is how the cheese or paneer is separated from the milk by using cloth as filter, as you can see in the picture here. The water that comes out from the tap contains many impurities like chemicals, dust particles, microorganisms. So this water is filtered through the purifier and then after we use it for drinking. Evaporation. Evaporation is the process in which a liquid gets converted into its vapor. Evaporation can be used to separate a solid dissolved in a liquid. This process is often used to separate salt from the salt and water, and also to separate salt from the seawater. When salty water is heated, the water gets converted into vapor at its boiling point. This process is called as evaporation. The vapors further, when comes in contact with the cold surface, they changes into liquid again. This is condensation. So, the changing of water into vapor and further changing into liquid on coming in contact with the cold surface is called as condensation. With this method, the salt is separated from the water. Boiling point is a temperature at which the liquid substance gets converted into its vapor form, and this is how the salt is separated. The water that is converted into vapor and further into liquid is collected in another beaker. The salt is left behind. To get sea from the seawater is collected in the shallow pits near the sea, as you can see in the picture here. The water in the shallow pits gets converted into vapor through the process of evaporation. When the water evaporates completely, it leaves behind the solid salt. This is known as common salt. This salt is not pure. It is collected and sent for the purification in the industry, and that is how we get salt in a plate after purification. Sometimes in the mixture there are more than two substances mixed. So in that case, we cannot use only one method to separate substances from the mixture. In that condition, we need more than one technique or method to separate the substances. Let's know using more than one method of separation. What are these? Suppose in a solution, sand and water are mixed. So how to separate these? First, we will follow the method of sedimentation and decantation, in which sand will settle down and the salt water will be decanted in another beaker. Or directly we will follow the method of filtration, in which the sand will remain on the filter paper and the salt solution will pass through the filter in another container. This is how we will get the salt solution and sand separated. Now, the salt will be separated from the water by heating it. This water gets converted into vapor by the process of evaporation. And when this water vapor comes in contact with the cold surface, is further converted into liquid by the process of condensation. This is how when where water completely gets evaporated and condensed, the salt is separated from the water and it is left behind, and the liquid water is collected in another container. In this way, we can separate salt, sand from the water. So, if we want to separate sand and iron fillings from the water, what we will do? We will follow sedimentation and decantation to separate sand, or filtration to separate sand from the water, and we will use magnetic separation to separate the iron filings, as iron is magnetic and it will be attracted towards the magnet, so it will get separated. This is how we use more than one technique in some of the mixtures. So children, these were some of the techniques or methods that we can use to separate different substances in the mixture. Think of a solution of sugar and water. You often do this. When you add sugar in water, it can dissolve easily. But when you add more sugar and stir, it again dissolves. But after adding more and more sugar in the same water solution, what do you see? You see that the substance or the particles of sugar do not dissolve in the water. They settles down in the water. So at this stage, when you will not be able to dissolve any more sugar, is the saturated condition, and this is known as saturated solution. So what is a saturated solution or unsaturated solution? The solution in which more and more salt or sugar can be added, this is known as unsaturated solution. But whereas when no more solid substance can be added in the water or any other liquid, it is known as saturated solution. If we heat this solution, we can increase the solid substances dissolving in this water, or we can say that by heating we can increase the concentration or we can increase the solubility of the substance. Conclude now, or we can summarize that a solution is said to be saturated if it cannot dissolve more of the substance or solute in it. More of a substance can be dissolved in a solution by heating it. Water dissolves different amount of soluble substances in it. So children, I hope you have understood now all the concepts regarding the technique of separation in this lesson. That's all in this lesson, children, and till then, for the next video, take care and thanks for watching.